Emma Carter's phone buzzed violently against her nightstand, the blue light cutting through her dark bedroom. She fumbled for it, squinting at the screen. The numbers 1:12 a.m. glared back at her in harsh white digits. Emma groaned, rubbing her eyes with her free hand. 3 years as executive assistant to the demanding CEO of Donovan Tech had trained her to expect these midnight emergencies, but they never got easier. She swung her legs out of bed, her bare feet hitting the cold hardwood floor. The AC hummed too loudly in her small apartment. Emma, it's 1 a.m. Mark, and our investors meet at 8. Get me the files. She could practically hear his impatient tone through the screen. With a sigh, she padded to her tiny home office, the glow of her laptop illuminating the dark room. As she pulled up the documents, her phone buzzed again. Mark, you're the only one I trust with this. Emma paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. That was new. Mark Donovan didn't give compliments, especially not at 1 a.m. The next month passed in a blur of late nights and increasingly personal texts. What began as strictly business communication slowly bled into something more intimate. 12:37 a.m. Mark, still working? Emma, obviously. Mark, putting in a pizza order. Want some? Emma stared at the text, her stomach growling in response. In 3 years, Mark had never asked about her meals. She hesitated before replying. Emma, pepperoni. No olives. Mark, I know. Her breath caught. He remembered. From that one company lunch months ago where she'd picked olives off her salad with meticulous care. The next night, 11:49 p.m. Mark, why do you always wear your hair up? Emma, professionalism. Mark, wear it down tomorrow. Emma's fingers flew to her tight bun, suddenly self-conscious. When she walked into the office the next morning with her auburn waves loose around her shoulders, Mark's gaze lingered just a second too long. The company gala changed everything. Emma stood near the bar, a rare moment without her clipboard, when Mark appeared beside her holding 2 glasses of champagne. You look different, he said, his eyes tracing the emerald green dress she'd agonized over buying. Different bad? She asked, accepting the glass. Different dangerous. His fingers brushed hers as he passed the drink, sending an electric current up her arm. They stood too close in the crowded room, the heat between them impossible to ignore. When Mark's hand found the small of her back to guide her through the crowd, Emma knew she was in trouble. Their first kiss happened in the elevator, the moment the doors closed on the 42nd floor. Mark's lips were surprisingly soft, his hands firm on her waist as he backed her against the mirrored wall. We shouldn't, Emma gasped between kisses. I know, Mark murmured against her mouth, not stopping. Their first night together was in a hotel room booked under business meeting. Emma learned Mark slept with one arm curled above his head, his breathing deep and even. Mark discovered Emma laughed in her sleep, a soft, breathy sound that made him smile in the dark. But with each secret encounter came crushing guilt. Emma would lie awake after Mark left, staring at the ceiling, wondering when this would all come crashing down. People are talking, Jason from accounting hissed at Emma by the coffee machine one morning. His beady eyes gleamed with malicious curiosity. You think no one notices when you disappear for 2-hour lunches? Emma's hands shook as she poured her coffee, the scalding liquid nearly spilling over. That night, 11:59 p.m. Mark, we need to be careful. Emma, I know. Mark, I don't mean stop. The anonymous email hit the entire executive team at 4:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. The grainy image showed Mark pressing Emma against her car, his hands in her hair, their bodies flushed together. There was no mistaking what was happening. Emma's stomach dropped to her feet. She barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting. Emma's phone lit up at midnight exactly. Mark, emergency board meeting tomorrow. They're voting to remove me. Emma, because of us. Mark, meet me at our place. Now. In the dim light of the hotel bar where they'd had their first real conversation, Mark slid an envelope across the table. His resignation. I won't apologize for this, he said, his hand covering hers. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, the way he did when he was nervous. Emma turned her palm up to intertwine their fingers. Neither will I. 6 months later, Emma stood in the kitchen of their new apartment, her hair down, watching Mark burn toast. His phone buzzed with a message from Donovan Technician's new CEO, a consulting offer. Think you'll go back? She asked, leaning against the counter. Mark wrapped his arms around her waist, kissing her temple. Not a chance. He turned her to face him. Though I do miss having you as my assistant. Emma swatted his chest. You wish. Mark caught her hand, pressing it over his heart. I do. Every day. The toast smoked behind them, forgotten. The smoke alarm shrieked as blackened toast filled their apartment with the acrid scent of burned bread. Emma laughed, reaching past Mark to yank the offending slices from the toaster and toss them in the sink. You're hopeless, she teased, turning on the faucet to douse the smoking remains. Water hissed against hot metal. Mark caught her wrist, pulling her back against his chest. I have other skills, he murmured into her hair, his breath warm against her neck. Emma leaned into him, still amazed at how naturally they fit together now. 6 months ago, she'd been terrified to touch him in public. Now she could turn in his arms and kiss him whenever she wanted, a freedom that still sent a thrill through her. His phone buzzed again on the counter. You should answer that, she said against his lips. Mark groaned, resting his forehead against hers. It's just the board trying to lure me back. Emma plucked the phone from the granite countertop, swiping to read the message. They're offering you the London office. Full autonomy. The change in his posture was subtle, just a slight tensing of his shoulders, but she noticed. She always noticed. You miss it, she said softly. Mark took the phone from her hand and set it face down on the counter. I miss parts of it, he admitted. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Not enough to go back. The unspoken question hung between them. Emma turned to the fridge, needing space to think. She pulled out eggs and butter, the cool air washing over her flushed face. We could, she said carefully, cracking eggs into a bowl. If you wanted. London would be a fresh start. Mark came up behind her, his hands settling on her hips. Is that what you want? Emma whisked the eggs harder than necessary. That was the question, wasn't it? She'd spent the last 6 months rebuilding, finding a new job at a smaller firm, adjusting to life where she wasn't the assistant who slept with the boss. The wooden spoon stilled in her hands. I want you to be happy. Mark turned her to face him, his expression unreadable. Say the word and we'll book tickets tonight. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. This man who used to send terse midnight demands now waited for her decision with patient eyes. Emma reached up to straighten his collar, an old habit. Let's try it, she whispered. For a year. Mark's smile could have powered the city. He kissed her soundly, then reached for his phone. I'll call Henderson about the contract. As he walked into the living room, Emma turned back to the stove, her heart pounding. The eggs sizzled as she poured them into the pan, the golden liquid spreading and bubbling. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number, Did you really think you could walk away that easily? Emma's blood ran cold. The spatula clattered against the floor. Mark appeared in the doorway. Em, what's wrong? She turned the screen toward him, her hand trembling. Mark's face darkened. He took the phone, his jaw tightening as he read. Jason, he spat. The eggs burned unnoticed as Mark pulled Emma close. It doesn't matter, he said fiercely. Wherever we go together this time. Emma buried her face in his chest, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. The fear didn't disappear, but it lessened, tempered by the steady beat of his heart against her ear. The smoke alarm wailed again. Mark sighed, pressing a kiss to her hair. I'll get the fire extinguisher. Emma laughed despite everything, the sound bright in their smoky kitchen. This was their life now, burned toast and threats from the past, all tangled together. And for the first time, she knew exactly how to respond to that midnight text. Emma, try me, the fire extinguisher hissed as Mark sprayed their ruined breakfast. White foam coated the pan like fresh snow, the chemical smell mixing with lingering smoke. Emma watched from the kitchen doorway, her phone still clutched in shaking hands. Unknown number, did you really think you could walk away that easily? Mark tossed the extinguisher aside and pulled her into a hug. We'll change your number. Get a restraining order if we have to. His voice was steady, but she felt his pulse racing where her fingers touched his neck. Emma nodded against his chest, breathing through the panic. 3 months of peace, and now this. The eggs had congealed into a rubbery mess, their golden promise turned to waste. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number, check your work email. The smiley face made her stomach lurch. Mark grabbed his laptop from the couch, fingers flying across the keys. When the screen lit up, they both froze. There, in high-resolution glory, was a photo from the company gala, Mark's hand sliding up her thigh beneath the tablecloth. Emma remembered that moment with perfect clarity, the champagne bubbles on her tongue, the dangerous thrill of his touch in a crowded room. Mark slammed the laptop shut. He's bluffing. Those investors love me. They won't care about some. Emma's work email, urgent, all staff meeting, 10 a.m. The timestamp read 9:47 a.m. They stared at each other. 13 minutes. 13 minutes until her entire professional life imploded. Mark was already moving, yanking open their closet. Wear the blue dress. The one that makes you look untouchable. He tossed it to her, then pulled on his charcoal suit, his war armor, she called it. Emma dressed mechanically, her mind racing. She'd spent 6 months rebuilding her reputation at Klein & Associates. 6 months of arriving early, leaving late, proving she was more than a scandal. All about to evaporate in a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation. Mark straightened her necklace, his fingers warm against her collarbone. We walk in together. Head high. She caught his hand. What if? No what ifs. He kissed her knuckles. Not this time. The Uber ride passed in silence. Emma watched raindrops race down the window, each one a ticking second closer to ruin. Mark's phone buzzed relentlessly, no doubt the board panicking, but he ignored them all, his thumb rubbing circles on her palm. At 9:58 a.m., they stepped into Klein & Associates' sleek lobby. The receptionist's eyes widened. Whispers followed them like a wake as they marched toward the conference room. Emma's heel caught on the carpet. Mark's hand shot out to steady her. Together, he reminded her softly. She pushed open the doors. 30 heads swiveled toward them. At the front of the room, Jason stood smirking beside a projected image of their gala photo now enlarged to humiliating proportions. CEO Henderson's face was thunderous. Emma. Mr. Donovan. How convenient. Mark stepped forward, his voice carrying without shouting. Before anyone forms opinions, you should know Jason's been embezzling funds through the Cayman accounts. He tossed a USB drive on the table. Audit proofs, including his blackmail payments to IT for that security footage. The room erupted. Jason's face went sheet white. Emma gaped at Mark. When did you? Been working on it since we left Donovan, he muttered, squeezing her hand. Happy anniversary. Henderson slotted the drive into his laptop. The screen changed to spreadsheets, wire transfers, all damningly highlighted. When he looked up, his gaze went straight to Emma. Miss Carter, I believe you have some vacation time accrued. Relief nearly buckled her knees. Beside her, Mark grinned that reckless, midnight smile she loved. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. Mark, told you we'd be fine. Emma elbowed him, fighting a smile. You're insufferable. Yours, though. He kissed her temple as chaos swirled around them. Now let's go home. I owe you breakfast. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled their London flat as Emma stared at the envelope on the kitchen counter. The thick, cream-colored paper bore the embossed logo of Donovan Technicians' London office. Mark came up behind her, his chin resting on her shoulder. Open it, he murmured, his morning stubble scratching her cheek. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. The letter inside was brief. The board unanimously approves your proposal. Welcome home, Mr. Donovan. Emma spun to face him. You're taking the London position. Mark's hand settled on her waist. We're taking it. They want you heading corporate communications. He grinned. Turns out sleeping with the boss has its perks. She swatted his chest, but laughter bubbled up anyway. A year ago, this would have terrified her. Now, the thought of walking back into those hallowed halls together, no stolen glances, no hiding sent warmth flooding through her veins. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Jason blocked, heard the news. Don't think this is over. Mark plucked the phone from her hands and dropped it into his coffee mug. The screen died with a pathetic gurgle. New phone, new number, new life, he declared. Starting now. Emma watched her digital life drown in dark roast. That was a 1,200 phone. And worth every penny. Mark kissed her soundly, his lips tasting of coffee and promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were serious. No more ghosts from the past. Just us. The morning sun streamed through their windows as they packed for the move back home. Mark folded sweaters with military precision while Emma debated which shoes to bring. You realize we're going to be that couple now, she said, tossing a heel at him. The ones who scandalized the entire company then came back like conquering heroes. Mark caught the shoe midair. I prefer power couple. He tugged her onto his lap. Besides, we earned this, you especially. His thumb brushed the dark circles under her eyes, reminders of all the nights she'd stayed up rebuilding her reputation. Emma leaned into his touch. The fear that had haunted her for months of whispers in elevators, of judgmental stares melted away. Let them talk. She'd walk into Donovan Tech on Monday with her head high and her hand in Mark's, and damn anyone who had a problem with it. Her new phone buzzed on the nightstand. CEO Henderson, looking forward to having you both back. The office isn't the same without its power couple. Emma showed Mark the message. He groaned. We're never living that down, are we? Not a chance, she laughed, kissing him. Later, as they stood in their empty flat, suitcases by the door, Mark pulled her close. Remember our first text? Emma smiled against his chest. Need the Q2 financial projections. Now. How far we've come, he murmured. Her phone buzzed one last time. Mark, love you. Now let's go home. Emma sent back the only response that mattered, Emma, always.